The Zephyrian Council convened in their crystalline chamber, 300 light-years from the blue world that had become their greatest concern. Ambassador Kethvar's tendrils writhed with barely contained frustration as he addressed the assembly. "The humans refuse our ultimatum," he announced, his voice resonating through the translucent walls. "Their leader, this President Chen, has formally rejected our demand for tribute. She claims Earth owes nothing to the galactic hegemony." Murmurs rippled through the gathered representatives of 17 species. The Thrakari delegate clicked his mandibles disapprovingly, while the ethereal voidlings flickered with agitation. "Impossible," hissed General Vexthos, his scaled hide shifting from purple to angry crimson. "No species has ever defied us for more than a solar cycle. They must be made to understand their place in the natural order." Elder Mordun, eldest of the council, raised a gnarled appendage. "Perhaps we underestimate them. The humans have been unusual since their arrival on the galactic stage. Their expansion rate, their technological adaptation, irrelevant," Vexthos cut him off. "They are a young species, carbon-based, fragile. I propose we send the Shadowkin." The chamber fell silent. The Shadowkin were the hegemony's most feared, assassins, beings of pure darkness who could slip between dimensions, phase through matter, and kill without leaving a trace. In 3,000 years, they had never failed a mission. "The risk," Elder Morden began. "There is no risk," Vexthos declared. 3 Shadowkin operatives will infiltrate Earth, eliminate their leader, and demonstrate the futility of resistance. The human species will fall in line within days. Ambassador Kethavar's tendrils curled with uncertainty, but he nodded. "Very well. Dispatch the Shadowkin." President Sarah Chen sat in the Oval Office, reviewing the latest reports from the Mars colonies when her security chief, Director Martinez, entered with an expression she'd learned to read as trouble. "Madam President, we have a situation. Our deep space monitoring stations detected dimensional phase signatures approaching Earth. 3 distinct entities, moving in patterns consistent with hegemony stealth technology." Chen leaned back in her chair unsurprised. The intelligence briefings had predicted this response. "Assassins? That's our assessment. They'll likely make planetfall within the hour." Chen stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the south lawn where tourists moved peacefully along the paths. "Director, please activate Protocol 7. Martinez hesitated. "Ma'am, are you certain? We've never tested it under these conditions." "I'm certain, and Martinez, make sure our guests feel welcome." The first Shadowkin materialized in the presidential bedroom at 0300 hours, his form barely more substantial than smoke. Zarketh had eliminated 73 political leaders across the galaxy. Humans, he'd been briefed, were particularly vulnerable during their sleep cycles. He moved toward the bed, darkness coalescing into a blade of pure void energy. But as he approached, something felt wrong. The human's breathing pattern was off. Too regular, too controlled. President Chen opened her eyes and smiled. "Hello, Zarketh." The assassin froze. No target had ever known his name. "Surprised?" Chen sat up calmly, apparently unconcerned by the creature of living shadow looming over her. "We've been studying your people for months. Ever since we intercepted the hegemony's communications about their final solution for the human problem." Zarketh's form wavered with confusion. "Impossible. Our communications are quantum encrypted." "Yes, they were quite challenging to crack. Took our AIs about 6 hours. Chen stood and walked to her dresser, seemingly oblivious to the assassin's presence. "You see, Zarketh, there's something the hegemony doesn't understand about humanity. We're remarkably good at pattern recognition. And once we recognize a pattern..." She turned to face him, and Zarketh saw something in her eyes that made his dark essence recoil, not fear, anticipation. "We exploit it." The walls of the bedroom suddenly blazed with light. Not ordinary illumination, but something that cut through the Shadowkin's dimensional phasing like fire through tissue paper. Zarketh shrieked as his form was forced into solidity, his void blade dissipating. "Polarized photonic barriers," Chen explained conversationally. Took our physicists 3 weeks to figure out how to trap beings that exist partially outside normal spacetime. The hard part was the power requirements, but we've gotten quite good at miniaturizing fusion reactors. Zarketh struggled against the light prison, his form crackling with pain. This is impossible. You're a primitive species. Primitive? Chen laughed. We went from horse-drawn carriages to orbital stations in less than 2 centuries. We invented nuclear weapons before we invented computers, then built a global information network before we figured out interstellar travel. We don't follow anyone else's technological progression, Zarketh. We make our own path. She pressed a button on her nightstand. Director Martinez, please inform our other guests that their colleague has been secured. I believe they're currently discovering that the Capitol building and the Pentagon have been similarly equipped. Through the communication device, Martinez's voice crackled with satisfaction. Already done, Madam President. All 3 Shadowkin are contained. No casualties on our side. Chen nodded and turned back to Zarketh. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return to the hegemony with a message. Tell them that Earth appreciates their interest in our affairs, but we must respectfully decline their invitation to join their empire. Tell them that we know about their surveillance posts in the Kepler 442 system, their weapons manufacturing facilities in the Vega sector, and the rather concerning biological experiments they're conducting on Proxima Centauri b. The assassins' form flickered with terror. How do you know all that? Because while you were planning to send 3 assassins, we were mapping your entire civilization. Every ship, every base, every communication relay. We are very, very good at gathering intelligence, Zarketh. Almost as good as we are at making weapons. She walked to the window, looking out at the dawn breaking over Washington. You see, the thing about humans is that we learn from every threat. Every challenge makes us stronger, more adaptable, more dangerous. The hegemony made a fundamental error. They assumed we were just another species to be conquered. Chen turned back to the trapped assassin, her smile sharp as a blade. We're not. We're humans, and we don't kneel to anyone. The light barriers flickered off for just a moment, allowing Zarketh to phase back into his dimensional form. He looked at the human leader with newfound understanding and, for the first time in his existence, genuine fear. Go, Chen said quietly. Deliver my message, and tell the hegemony that if they send assassins again, we won't be so hospitable next time. Zarketh vanished without another word. 3 hours later, the Zephyrian Council received a transmission that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The message was simple, delivered in perfect hegemony standard by a species they had dismissed as primitives. This is President Sarah Chen of Earth. Your assassins have been returned to you unharmed, as a gesture of goodwill. However, any future acts of aggression will be met with proportional response. We prefer peace, but we are exceptionally talented at war. Choose wisely. Elder Mordun was the first to speak after the transmission ended. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should reconsider our approach to the humans. General Vexthos, his scales now a pale, sickly yellow, could only nod in agreement.